Hi there, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Ryan McCombs, and in tonight's video, I will break down a few segments from my recent sit-down interview with Monroe County legislator and Congressional District 25 candidate Virginia McIntyre. In this first segment, her and I discuss her personal and political background and the details of the district. Check it out. Today in studio, we have a very special guest with us, our county legislator, Virginia McIntyre. I am the volunteer coordinator for her campaign, so it's great to have her on the show today. She is running for the Congressional District 25, which includes all of Monroe County and then small parts of Ontario County, I believe.
Yeah.
All right.
So thank you so much for having me on.
Of course.
And thank you for all of your help in the campaign.
Yes.
You have been very, very, I don't know what we'd be doing without you right now, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I guess the first thing is, as you said, a lot of people ask me, well, when we say New York's 25th Congressional District, what do we mean? All of Monroe County, right? So that's whether you live out in Honeoye Falls and Mendon, or whether you live all the way out in Hamlin, Brockport, all the way down to Webster, Irondequoit, Perrington, Penfield. I've been all over the map with Monroe County campaigning. And then we have in Ontario County, there's a sliver of Ontario County, which is Victor and Bloomfield. And just like a couple of houses in East Bloomfield, I'm told. So That's where we are.
Very good, very good. Well, I guess I'll just begin by asking you just to tell us a little bit about yourself personally. Okay. Obviously, you've been, I think this is your second term now in the county legislature?
Oh boy. So, I didn't start out in politics at all.
Right.
I started out wanting to be an opera singer, and I knew I wanted to sing before I was even 2 years old. At 18 months, I was already singing. And by the time, and I was watching Sesame Street and saw Crystal Gale, who had this long flowing hair from back in, who actually has my same birthday. Well, not the same year, but January 9th. She's a January 9th baby, so am I. When I saw her singing and I understood that her job was to be a singer, at that point, then I said to my mother, I want to be an opera singer. I want to be a singer. I really wanted to be a rock singer, and then it shifted into opera. I got some opportunities to sing with the Rochester Bach Children's Choir. So I have a very different background for any of this. I wasn't planning on doing any of this. There's a statement that if you want to make God laugh, you make a plan. My plans were completely different. My mother was in law enforcement. She was very active in community service and public service. And my aunt and all of her kids, they're teachers. My dad, he had a couple different jobs. He worked in factories. He was a truck driver at one point. So I don't come from the super political family that you would expect. And I really, I've always noticed politics because there were a lot of discussions around the kitchen table, right?
Yeah.
My grandparents, who I loved, and they raised me after my parents' divorce, they were vote blue no matter who, Democrats, absolutely. And then my uncle, who lived in the house because he was a veteran but had some issues, he was, diehard Reagan Republican. So I grew up listening to these very charged conversations in my house. And so by the time I was 7 or 8, I had some very strong opinions of my own, which tended to be more conservative.
In this next segment, Virginia and I talk about medical freedom, the ever-rising cost of health care in New York State, and the need to address the challenges faced by our aging population, both in Monroe County and in Ontario County. Go. Yeah, and that is something that I'd like to talk about because I meet people on both sides of the aisle. Including a lot of women, particularly mothers, even who are registered independent and registered Democrat, who have told me that they started voting Republican after the pandemic precisely because of this vaccine issue. And I know that this is an issue that was very personal for your mother because she was actually denied a kidney over it. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that story?
Okay, so it's personal for me as well because I wasn't sure they were even going to let me leave Italy. Everybody that was there was pressuring me to get it, so that I wouldn't have to worry about the flight. And I just did not. And there were different versions of it that were available, like the AstraZeneca was also, which was not mRNA, was available. And my friends had taken it. So I had friends in my friend group that had taken it. And I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable taking this. Because I knew I knew what the research was saying, because I was involved in those research translations at the time. Or at least I had been involved in prior translations, so I was in contact with like the medical community that was,
Right.
They weren't against it entirely, but there were questions. There were lots of questions. And I was so happy when I tested negative and could get on my flight. That was a real stress. I mean, I almost broke down in tears. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get home to my mom. And my mother was in the hospital. She did survive, thank goodness. She's my sidekick. She goes everywhere with me. Anybody that knows me knows how big a deal my mom is for me. And when she got out of the hospital in August, so she was in the hospital from April to August. Okay, they put her on. She was on dialysis, and they put her on the kidney transplant list. So we went through the whole process, which is lengthy, and there's exams you have to do, like dental exams and all different exams, and they cost money. I mean, if your insurance covers, well, her insurance didn't cover the dental stuff, so we'd gone through this process. You have to have your teeth checked. I don't know if you know that before you do any kind of transplant. So we were right before the point where they were going to line her up for a kidney. We were supposed to have our meeting with the U of R in February, and in December we got a call from them, or November or December, saying, oh, well, before we book this for you, we have to know your mother's vaccine status. And I looked over and said, she feels very strongly about this, and she's pro-life, and she feels it's been tested on cells, and she will not take it. And they said to me, well, if she doesn't take the vaccine, we're not going to give her a kidney. If she does not get the kidney, she will die, or she will have a very shortened lifespan. And I said, I don't think she's going to take the vaccine. So they thought that this was something I was pressuring her on, and they purposely called her when I was not around to try and pressure her. Meanwhile, I mean, what I will say this, my mom is on a drug called Eliquis, which is very common right now, blood thinner, because she suffers from clotting as well. I mean, we could take that, but they called her, and they tried to pressure her. And my mother is, I kind of get that nonconformist thing from Mama, because Mama looked over on the phone and said, you know what, I'm not taking it. And they said, well, ma'am, your life will be shortened if you do not take this, because we can't give you a kidney without it. And she said, well, I guess that's in the Lord's hands, and hung up on them. I thought about suing. I mean, one of the first political things, I thought about suing because in a certain sense it was religious discrimination. Because it was connected so closely to her religious beliefs. But I thought about it and said, do we really want to spend our time and money on a legal battle of this kind? And I called them back and said, you know what? We're not going to sue, even though I've considered it. I'm going to get my mother off dialysis. And the doctors laughed at me because it's very uncommon to get off dialysis. Nobody gets off dialysis. 3 months later, I had her off. By February, when we would have had that appointment, if you think about it, I had her off dialysis. I got her off dialysis without that kidney.
That's amazing.
So we didn't need their kidney. And she goes everywhere with me now.
Yes.
There was a lot to it. There was I hover over her about what she eats. We got her off of all the diabetic medication. She's officially not diabetic, although she hovers over the diabetic area. I'm always kind of grumbling at her for eating stuff she's not supposed to eat. But yeah, and in the process of this, I became a full-time caregiver, which is something that politically people don't talk a lot about.
No.
But so you're young, so you don't know that this is a big deal. There are a lot of older adults out there. Our community is aging, right? And birth rates are dropping. So there are fewer and fewer young people to actually pick up the torch and be mentored to be the future. And my district is about 30 something. The district that I currently represent in the legislature, Gates and Grace, the parts of it that I represent, it's about 30. It's over 30%, I think, over the age of 60. I mean, it's a high concentration. And the problem is that there's a lot of older adults that don't have anyone to help them. My mom's lucky. She has me. I follow her around. I do all the things. I take her places. I make sure that she's eating right. I do all those things for her. What I found out in the course of being a caregiver is that the hours of caregiving time, the hours that it takes people like me to do that, many of them women, many of them, I don't have children, but a lot of women do. They're taking care of teenage children and driving those teenage children to like the soccer practices, and also taking care of their aging parents, and trying to help them keep their autonomy, trying to help them age in place, and yet doing a lot of that work, that it would be millions and millions and millions of dollars into the New York state budget and into the federal budget if we really quantified the hours that caregivers dedicate to taking care of our older adults.
Finally, in this last segment, Virginia and I talk about her opponent. Is he the political moderate that many people make him out to be? Or is he actually a Trojan horse? Make sure to watch this segment to find out. Go.
I work for the people. That is my main focus, and it's we the people, not we the politicians. And that goes for everybody. I see everybody as being a part of that. Like, I come from the background of it's the people that matter. And I think that that's a very Republican standpoint, but there are definitely Republicans that get upset when you do any of the self-criticism, right? Or you criticize a Democrat that they see as being a moderate. Okay, if that Democrat that's a moderate is entrenched in the political machine that is basically destroying and dividing our nation, then we should all be complaining about it.
And when you look at Joe Morelli's voting record, he is not a moderate.
No, he's
by
not.
any stretch of the imagination. He might
what
be
day
moderate.
Is today? It depends on the day.
He might be moderate relative to who just ran against him in a primary. But he is, objectively speaking, not a moderate.
Well, I actually think that, Sharita, who got a lot less airtime when it came to stuff because she had a lot less funding, she was reasonable and moderate. Like, I listened to the debate, and I felt that she had some very good. I thought that she actually had the strongest performance in that debate, was very impressed with her, and, unfortunately, she just didn't have the funding to get the message out there, So, again, it is what it is. But I think that with him being a moderate, it depends on the day. Like, what day is it? What day is it, and what's the political talking point of today?
And there you have it. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to tune in to Tuesday's episode. Until next time, I salute you.